let me introduce you, Mr. Andres. Mr. Andres was my professor at Thomas Aquinas College, and Mr. David, whom you guys know, asked me a few months back if I could contact someone from there to try and give an explanation of liberal arts and the liberal education. TAC does in a very purist way, Thomas Aquinas College. At JP2, we try and do it. We're a little bit less hardcore. We have business classes and things, but we also have logic classes and philosophy classes, and try and preserve the same order in studies. Try and use the liberal arts before going on to philosophy. Well, actually, we do philosophy at the same time because there's only 2 years. Anthony Andres received his BA from Thomas Aquinas College in 1987 and his PhD from the University of Notre Dame in 1993. From then until 2007, he taught in the philosophy department of Christendom College, where he was chairman from 2002 to 2004. He then returned to his alma mater, Thomas Aquinas College. He was the editor of the Aquinas Review, an interdisciplinary academic journal from 2012 to 2016. He researches and writes on logic in the Aristotelian tradition. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Andres, Dr. Andres.
Hi, good to see you, Mr. Meluch. First, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask about what I talked about earlier in the day.
If I may ask a question, Dr. Andres, you can hear me?
Yes, I can, definitely.
I guess my question for you, based on what you shared with us, was I was curious what sort of fruits in the lives of your students, maybe, that you've seen from receiving this rigorous liberal education, and yeah, I guess how does it look in the lives of your students? What have you seen?
Yeah, I'd say that. So I went to the college where I teach now, and I found. So I'll talk about my own experience first. I found that the study of the liberal arts and pursuing a liberal education, studying theology and philosophy, had just a tremendous impact on my own life. Now, part of that comes from the fact that I went further, pursued a degree in philosophy, and made it kind of my profession to be part of this kind of project. But even putting that aside, I feel like two things happened to me. One thing that happened was that because I had this kind of education, I felt comfortable and confident to talk with anyone, no matter what persuasion I thought that they had beforehand, and try to engage them in a conversation about the most important things. And I'm taking the most important things to include how you live your life, and that's not primarily what kind of job you get, but it's the kind of habits and activities that you make be the point of your life. And secondly, talking to people about matters that have to do with faith and the existence of God and their relationship to God. So I felt comfortable that way. And those conversations have really borne fruit in my life with when I've talked with other people. Not, I feel like I have something to contribute to other people, but I also learn from them. I suppose the second thing, and it's related, is that it's certainly deepened my Catholic faith to not only learn more about it in theology, but both in theology and philosophy, to see that a real understanding of the world helps you to see that the faith makes more sense, and it makes more sense than other than a life in which you try to live without God. And I think that's true. So I've seen that for myself, but then I've seen these same fruits in students who I've known years afterwards. I see them, they come back to campus, and we talk about what's going on in their lives, and they can share the same kinds of experiences with me that I've just shared with you. I haven't just taught at Thomas Aquinas College. I also taught at a somewhat similar college, Christendom College, as well for 14 years before I came here. And in those students, they also pursued liberal education there, and I felt the same thing about those students as I feel about the students I have that I've had since I've been at Thomas Aquinas College.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I see it. So the question in the chat asks, do you think our acceptance of liberal education requires a certain level of maturity and foundation and core values? Yes. I think that not every student who reaches the age of 18 has thought seriously enough about some of these issues to be able to benefit from pursuing a liberal education. Occasionally you get a student who's unprepared, who's come to either of the colleges I've taught at, and they don't take anything seriously. They think of their time in education at the tertiary level as time to meet some people, have a lot of fun, do the minimum of work in their classes. That happens sometimes. What I've seen, though, is I've seen remarkable cases in which students have come, and then they don't take their liberal education seriously. They fail out, or they drop out after a semester or a year. And I've seen several cases where a couple of years later they come back, and they've gone out into the world, and then they've seen that they're missing something about they're missing something in their lives. They're missing a principle of understanding how their lives should work and how they're going to put their lives in order. They see that just pursuing fun is not getting them anywhere. It's becoming painful to them, and so they come back, and I've seen them come back with this incredible vigor of, now they know why this is important, and they're really determined to get something out of it. I remember a particular case where the guy failed out. He was gone for a couple of years. He came back, and he was a straight A student, model student, and it was just, he needed that extra time to mature. So the fact that someone's turned 18 doesn't by itself mean that they've gotten that maturity. Uh, uh, it's, I think, good if they have some of those kind of core values already. But sometimes what the students who are pursuing a liberal education, what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out what those core values should be. And that's part of why a liberal education is so important, that it gives them an opportunity to do that. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking about that particular issue.
Any other questions?
Okay. Andrew, do you think it'd be a good opportunity for me to ask a couple questions for the participants?
Yeah, I'm interested to give that a try. We've got 4 folks in here. One of the gentlemen might be here as a technician. Okay, we got 4 folks here. 2 of us are teachers here, and looks like we've got some online people. Yeah, let's give it a try.
Okay. I was wondering about this. What you think about this? A lot of college level schools have educations in which the curriculum that each student pursues is almost entirely determined by the choice of the student. They're just presented with a range of electives, and there's I was wondering, do we think that that's a good idea, or there are problems with that? I was just wondering what people's general thoughts about that were.
Just to make sure everyone gets it, can you say, you're asking if there's problems with what? Just one more time.
Yeah, with having a curriculum that's almost entirely made of elective courses. I was wondering, because if that's the case, then the student himself determines what his education is going to be. I was wondering if we had any thoughts about that. That's not how it used to be 200 years ago. That is how it is in many places now. I was wondering what we thought about that.
Could you? We don't have a clever microphone.
They do the free at work at. So they had to pick a major. It's pretty prescribed the opposite direction versus them being choose.
So you have a couple of hands up there. So Dr. Andres, if you were to call on Anna or Rosalie, that should work.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. Let's see. I do that.
Just with your voice should be fine.
Okay. Anna, yes, I'd like to hear what you had to say.
Oh, well, first the question that was in Andrew's room, I think, should be restated, but we couldn't hear what he said.
Oh yeah, I didn't hear either.
The gentleman said he's been teaching at public universities, and that's actually never been the option. People choose their majors, and then it's set once you choose your major, in his experience.
Okay.
What I was going to say was that I attended University of Nebraska for my undergraduate, so public land grant university. And one of the strategic goals of the university was to move towards more student designed curriculum. So like, I had some friends in university that designed their own majors. Like they created a major that didn't exist before at the institution by selecting different curriculum and different programs. And then it's part of one of the university's strategic goals to move towards more of that, where students basically build their own education, selecting which courses they learn. I assume like naming the degree. I guess I don't know the specifics of how it works. Like, do you earn a bachelor's in blankety blank? I don't know what the names of the degrees that they earn are. But it's something that my institution is trying to do. And in some ways I can see the value of it, at least from the perspective of the institution that I was attending, because like the land grant university, one of their main objectives is to equip a workforce and to like equip a workforce for the state and to I guess it seemed like a popular theme at the university I attended was equipping the workforce for the challenges that we will face in the future, but then also kind of trying to find an intersection of need in the world and then like the passion of the person. So like trying to find a place where those things intersect. And so to me, if those are your goals, if it's to create a workforce that can address modern problems and the problems that they're addressing intersect with the passions of the worker, it seems to make sense. It seems to be a good idea. But I think my perspective on what the goals of an education should be have shifted pretty dramatically since I've attended that university. And so, yeah, I'm not so, I think for job training, yeah, it seems like a great idea, but for an education, I don't think it makes sense as education.
I'm curious what other people think about that, because Dr. Odell was saying schools he's experienced set. You choose your major and they have everything set. Someone might say, like, seems like the best way to train anyone for a good job or give them a liberal education. Either way, you've got to prescribe the courses for them, because people's passions, who knows what they're going to be, who knows if they're going to be anything useful or really enriching. Like, you kind of go to school perhaps to get different passions. But sorry, go ahead, other people.
Oh yeah, Rosalie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good day, everybody. Well, I believe that having options is part of our lives. It's always going to be with us, and we should be prepared to make options, the right decisions. Right? So in this institution where I work, we don't have a lot of electives. It's a prescribed curriculum that we have. That's the majority of the cases in our country here in Belize. But when I was a teenager, I got the opportunity to study abroad. I studied in the Mexican education system, and we had plenty of options, electives that you could select from. And I can say that helped me. It helped me because it helped me to experience other things that I would not have experienced if I wouldn't have been offered those electives. Now, yes, we had our core, right? Core subjects. But the other options included, the arts included so much. And I needed, during my teenage years, I needed to be given those options to mold my path. Otherwise, I may have, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I think it is also part of the philosophy of liberal education to guide us. And we can do that with electives. I wish that our system here in Belize would be like that. You know, it's not like that, sadly. In many cases also, you don't even have the option of auditing free of cost. I had that option, and I remember sometimes, you know, in between my classes, I don't have anything to do. I was a foreigner where I was studying, so I didn't know where to go. And to be able to just go and sit in a class, in a conference, and to be accepted as part of that group helped me as a teenager. So I think that having electives, giving choices to our students will not only help us to gain more knowledge, but more importantly, it will guide us as human beings, because the electives can touch so many different sciences and arts, etc., right? That can help us to become holistic individuals, which I believe is the essence of liberal education. Thank you.
Doctor, is your question on like electives themselves, the goodness of electives themselves, or like the design of curriculum?
Yeah, yeah. I'm as I'm listening. I'm trying to think. I didn't have as determinate an idea about where the answers to this question would go as maybe would be helpful. I guess what I was thinking was, so the school where I teach is pretty darn radical and kind of purist, as Andrew pointed out. There are no electives at all. And the school where I previously taught, there were electives. And I was just wondering what people thought about, you know, where I previously taught, there was a broad core curriculum. So for more than 2 years, more than 2 years of classes, the students were almost always in required courses. And then in part of their junior year and in their senior year, they majored and took electives. In the majors, there were some requirements, but there were also others that weren't. There were other classes that were purely elective, and people could take electives outside their major. So I had an experience of that, and I have an experience of this, and I'm just thinking about what I see. As I can see, there are advantages to both ways of going. The advantage of having electives is that people who have abilities in certain areas and how would I put it, legitimate, intense interests in certain areas can pursue those areas more because there's electives in them. Whereas if the curriculum is entirely determined, then that's not possible. On the other hand, what I've seen in a curriculum which is entirely required, where there are no electives at all, is that all of the students, there's not only an orderliness to how they learn things, but also there's a community among the students that's stronger, because the more that they're all taking the same courses, the more they share the same experience, the more they're in the same pursuit, the more that outside of the classroom they can converse and interact about the important things that are happening inside the classroom. So what I guess what worries me is that some institutions of higher education, even when they're pursuing the liberal arts, don't seem to have any order to the way they present them at all, or very little order. And that bothers me. I don't see how that can work very well. I don't see how the students are mature enough yet to understand which things they need to learn, and how much they need to pursue them. Maybe I'm thinking of this way, that if someone's pursuing an education, a liberal education, there's some things they just need to learn and think about, even if they don't have a particular inclination to do that right now. So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking about when I asked that question.
I know we had other people who were trying to say something. Cindy was before.
I just wanted to say that our department, we students have the option to sign up for an undeclared major, which I think is really helpful. And also they could audit classes, different classes.
Do you have more thoughts on this question about electives and students being, just to kind of push it, students being prepared to make their own choices on that kind of thing, on what they need to learn?
In terms of more elective, like if they do have the options for more elective, like.
I guess I'm asking about the question in principle. What do you think of this sort of seeming problem that if students have electives, that assumes that they know what they need to learn, what's the order that they're going to invent is the right order?
Okay. Well, I think it's good, but also they need to have some order. So the electives, maybe some electives and some order courses. I think it will be helpful for students if they have, because like recently we had this focus group with students, and they most of the courses, it's just the order, like this, just maybe one elective. And they want other options because it helps them to be more marketable. So I believe in this environment, this era, they need to have options to do, maybe like in creative art or something innovative or something. So I think it is helpful if they would have more elective. The option to choose from, different fields. I'm not sure if that answers or it's in line with what you guys are discussing.
Yes, yeah. I think it is, yeah. I wanted to, let's see, we only have a couple minutes. Am I right about that?
Yes, we have until the end of the hour.
Okay. So I just wanted to also ask, I thought one of the things that I brought up in my talk that is, I think could maybe be controversial, is the idea that knowledge, at least of some things, is worthwhile for its own sake. And I was wondering, that is it's worthwhile even if you don't use it to pursue some other good. You just think, I just want to know this, and that there are certain kinds of knowledge that are worthwhile. I guess the thing is, I'm always involved in looking at the modern philosophers, and I'm asking myself the question, what do the modern philosophers say about this? And a lot of them just deny that. And I'm trying to get an inkling of modern educators now. Do we feel like most of them think that that's not true? Most of them think that knowledge is not for its own sake in some cases, or do we recognize that there is some kinds of knowledge are worthwhile, and to have just for their own sake.
Did you guys want to say?
So giving them the amount or what, in other words, helping them to choose is good, but also at the same time that
May I comment?
Yes, yes.
I feel like knowledge for its own sake is reflective of the kind of the W.E.B. Du Bois kind of argument that he had during the Harlem Renaissance with Alain Locke about whether it's art for art's sake, like let the artist make his art, or is it always for a cause, you know? And I sort of tend to side on the side of the art for art's sake or knowledge for knowledge sake. If you're interested, you know, I think we want to connect dots too closely to each other, that it could be 3 or 4 or 5 dots away before it ever really, you sort of are building something unconsciously. So I'm aware of the time, but I just had to say a little something.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Couple of comments in the chat.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Great. So I see a couple comments in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that some people said like it's good to knowledge is good because you don't yet see. Miss Anna, sorry to send this over time. Miss Anna Marie, were you saying that desiring knowledge for its own sake is good because actually it does connect to something useful but much further away? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can be so, you know, everything has to be one-to-one. If it isn't right in front of you, it doesn't matter. I just think that's just thinking small. I mean, I don't have any more time than anybody else does, but still, you know, you like to be able to sort of, you have to have confidence in the big picture, I think. And Lisa has her hand up.
Yes, Lisa.
Yes, I believe in knowledge for knowledge's sake, and I think when I think back, reflect back on what the presenter said at the beginning, a lot of what you described, I got, but not necessarily in the formal education system. I got that from my parents, and I got that from other people within my community. My knowledge and my exposure to information in Belize was not limited to the formal education system. And I think that's for everybody. I think it all depends on how you were brought up, in what the environment was like, what was available to you. And then when you think about the availability of electives, again, is do we have the resources available to provide the electives? And I think that's one of the stumbling blocks that we may have here, of having such a wide cross section of expertise to call on. And I think perhaps where we can start, where the lowest hanging fruit would be to start with the creative and performing arts, and bring them into our formal education system. And I'm speaking as I'm a surgeon, I'm in health sciences, but all the things that I learned outside of the classroom as I was headed down the pathway to medicine, at some point in time, they became useful and relevant, even if it was just trying to find a common subject to talk with a frightened patient about to go into surgery. All of that helps, it counts. It's how they are delivered into the package that is the person, I think. My 2 cents, as you say.
Yeah, I just, one of the things you said really struck me, which was that when we're educating the students, especially with respect to a liberal education, we couldn't be starting from scratch. We have to be, the students have to have already acquired something that's the beginning of the education, the liberal education that's going to come later. All right, so I'm ready to stop if that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I think it's time. In the grand tradition of this year's COBEC conference, I'll give an excessively long outro to Mr. Andres. Thank you, Dr. Andres. I think Dr. Andres has made a very strange proposal to us. He's kind of like, these electives seem kind of weird, giving kids their own choice. And the really important thing in education is the kind of knowledge that you want, just because it's so lovable and enjoyable itself. So it's kind of like, Mr. Andres is the kind of person who's like, you are going to sit here and eat ice cream, or you're going to be required to sing happy songs. And wait, maybe that's not what Mr. Andres is saying. But maybe he didn't just say something that was really obvious and clear. Maybe there's some reason why someone would have such curious opinions. I think you've given me some things to think about. So thank you, Dr. Andres, and thank you everyone for joining us for this session.
Okay, thank you.
You're up next. All right, God bless. See you, Dr. Andres.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.